Hey everyone, it's the grand return of R2-BD, finally! And, we've got some explaining to do. So, you know that Tenacious D song, Tribute?
Mm-hmm.
You know how it's about, like, they had, like, they like, fought the devil, and basically did, like, Devil Went Down to Georgia. And
they played
like the greatest song in the world, and then they like
but this
couldn't
is not that
remember it.
song.
It's not that song. They just tell you about it, and this is basically what this is. This is
R2-BD tribute.
Welcome to R2-BD, friends. Welcome back. We're recording remotely. It's okay. So we have a lot to catch you guys up on. We recorded 2 entire episodes that are now lost to time. To get that out of the way. Here's what. Actually, first thing on the docket, we're recording remotely.
Let's do this in reverse order.
We are currently in a position where we are multiple states away, living in these United States, and so it makes it kind of difficult to actually record these the way we normally do. But we're doing it remotely now. It's oddly enough, thankfully, most of the videos and things I do on Blood Donut Studios are remote anyway, so
right.
I'm well versed in this. Yeah, I'm well versed in this, so it works out for us.
For us, it's a little different because of you guys know. You guys been watching, presumably, so you kind of know how these things feel and flow.
Yeah, and so like, yeah. The other big important thing is we were supposed to have some episodes out the past few months, and for reasons I quite literally cannot explain, we do not have those files anymore. I don't know what happened to them. There were 2 whole episodes 3 and 4. About nearly 4 hours of our lives we will also quite literally never get back.
Yeah, which sucks because we did have some good conversation, if memory serves correctly.
Yeah, so it's like, so that's kind of what we're here to do. This is not going to be a long episode, I imagine. Just we're just kind of here to explain the situation to you all and tell you guys what's coming up going forward, and also kind of like just talk about some of the things we talked about during those 2 episodes, because we read books and comics and watched movies and shit, and it was a fun time, and we just
but not nearly in as much detail as we did last time.
Yeah, for me at least, if nothing else, it would feel a shame if we just didn't at least get some thoughts out on those things. Just talk about those fun things that we did.
I definitely want to talk about the fun things we did.
Of course, yeah.
Even the less fun things, just the more boring parts of them, I also want to talk about it.
Yeah. So let's do all that. It's really helpful. I haven't been numbering these episodes, which is really nice. It's just kind of like here. Yeah, I don't know if you noticed on the YouTube videos. I just kind of like put the name up and what we're talking about and R2-BD, and it's, I don't know. The idea being, you don't have to like tune into absolutely everything. I don't expect everyone to read every Star Wars book and comic out there like we're kind of doing ish.
We have an initiative to go broke.
Yeah, exactly. So, that, and also we did kind of come up with a thing during those 2 episodes. I think by the end of the 4th episode, that we were like, hey, we should actually tell the people what we're doing next time, so they can actually like sort of keep up with that. So we'll definitely be telling you guys what we're doing next time by the end of this video. So be sure to stick around for all that. That'll all be there. So anyway, broad overview, the things we covered on these 2 episodes. Episode 3, we talked about, for our movie/TV thing, we did Ewoks Caravan of Courage, which is a thing. We read the comic, the second volume of Star Wars, Showdown on the Smuggler's Moon by Jason Aaron. We did that. We did, and then for our book, I chose an audio drama, audio book thing, Dooku Jedi Lost by Kevin Scott. Also, one kind of nice thing about losing those episodes to time we had a super outdated segment on that episode that was like outdated like the second it would have come out. We talked about the potential forthcoming release of the Bad Batch season 3,
which would have been out by then.
Yeah, oh, definitely, or at least if the trailer would have been out, we would have known when it was coming. And now, as of the time of recording this, and obviously when it's coming out, the Bad Batch season 3 is currently releasing. So I guess silver linings. I don't know.
There's a silver lining in there somewhere.
Yeah. And then for episode 4, we talked about the first volume of the Clone Wars 2D micro series. We read the second volume of Darth Vader: Shadows and Secrets by Kieran Gillen. We read Brotherhood by Mike Chen. That was your book that you chose for us.
That was my pick, yes.
Yeah, and news-wise, we talked about the upcoming movie The Mandalorian and Grogu, as directed by Jon Favreau, or will be directed by Jon Favreau. So let's get into it.
Also massive speculation, if memory served correctly.
It was. Most of what we talk about in the news segment is massive speculation. Although I think we have a very relevant one that we could talk about this time if you want.
Yeah, sure.
Because I think it's coming up in mere few months, like right after the Bad Batch, so that'll be cool. Anyway, so let's talk about the things that we did. So kicking it off, we watched Ewok's Caravan of Courage. The Ewok Adventure, I think, as it was originally called.
I think it was called that, yeah.
And then I guess for what was it, like home releases or what was it?
Wasn't it originally a TV thing?
It was a TV thing called the Ewok Adventure, and then I think for like international cinema releases, it got an actual title, The Caravan of Courage.
Yes, that sounds correct.
So we watched it because we had never seen it before.
And we already had a massively disjointed like episode at that point with the book and the comic.
Yeah. Oh, there was nothing in common with the rest.
So
of that
we decided
episode.
to go. You know what? For like a year now, we've been saying we're going to watch this. Let's just take that plunge.
Exactly. So we just kind of skimming through my notes here. Things that I remember standing out to me. Burl Ives narrated it, which I remember being really weird. It was really fucking weird. I was like, I remember starting. I was like
narrating like halfway through.
He does, and then I think does he pick up again at some point? I think he picks up at the end, maybe. I can't remember.
The narration definitely dips in the middle.
Yeah. Which is he's there, I think, to narrate like the fact that the early portions of the movie are very Ewok centric, and so there aren't like people speaking English to like to sort of reconcile that, to like tell the audience what the fuck is going on, unless you want to subtitle the whole thing. But also, I think it was meant to be a kids movie, so that wouldn't have really worked. Right. So yeah, so just turning it on. I remember being weirded out. I was like, why do I feel like I'm watching Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer? This
yeah,
it's weird. Burl Ives was there.
Other notes stick out.
Yeah. There was a kid named Mace, no relation to Windu.
Oh yes, Mace.
Mace, and who is the other one?
It's his sister.
It was Mace and Sindel. Sindel was the girl. Yeah, which I think I remember. Didn't our like mom tell us at one point she wanted to name our sister Sindel? Because our mom was like a massive Ewok fan. Which is
in general.
Yeah, just in general. She just loves the Ewoks. It's fun. Anyway.
Sindel is also like, I hate that as like I hate is in my proverbial air quotes. That like as a Star Wars fan, I see Sindel and I go, yeah, sure, that makes sense.
Yeah. That's one of those things. It's just like I can't. I always feel bad punching down at kid actors, but I did not like either of those performances, and it's just
Mace had his moments.
Yeah.
Like there's definitely times like he's shown through as like as a good kid actor, but otherwise he was just a normal kid actor.
Yeah. I did kind of like the whole the search for like magical artifacts, they had the magical artifacts and they had to bestow them upon other Ewoks to go with them on their journey, on their caravan.
It was it was finding the right people to match the artifacts.
Yeah. and there were like these, I can't remember their names. I probably wrote them down somewhere, but I can't find them. There were like these bugbear looking things that stole Sindel and Mace's parents. And so they had to go save them. And there's the axe guy that we loved. I loved the axe guy. He goes he goes hard.
He does go hard.
He does go hard. Remember, he's like towards the end. He like goes after. That's the name. I found the bugbear name. Gorak, the Gorax.
Then listen, that was the only point in the film towards the end when Axeman dies that we illegitimately stopped talking through the film and like just watched it.
We fucking felt things for that guy. Yeah, it was great.
I think it was. He had a weird introduction, if memory serves correctly, though. Like him and Mace, it was like an axe throw contest, right?
Yeah, I think so. I seem to remember like joking about it being like yeah, sure, I can go on with you on your journey, because I don't think he wanted to go with them at first.
No, he didn't.
He was like, I can go with you on your journey, but have you seen my fucking axe? He's this thing's fucking great. Look at what I can do with it, and that was that. And that was like, I think most of what was there like of note to talk about in Caravan of Courage.
Because otherwise, it's kind of like, here's a situation. This magical item is the solution. That was it. Because there was that bit with the magic stick that was it Wicket had.
I think so. One of them had it. There was the wizard guy. No. I think there's some noises outside. It's annoying. Jesus. Anyway,
items like I remember because Mace had the rock that he was mad he had the rock about.
Yeah, that's right. And then like the rock ended up being important, of course.
Showed the way.
And then there's the wizard Ewok who had someone else had the stick though. Maybe it was Wicket. It was probably Wicket.
I think it was Wicket.
I don't know.
If we're wrong, will anyone even know?
Probably not. Nobody's seen this movie.
We're one of 4 people.
People have seen this movie. Anyway, we also talked about our second volume of Star Wars, Showdown on the Smuggler's Moon, which was fun. Actually, it was a great time. I really enjoyed it.
Was a really good time. Moon. That was a really good comic.
Yeah, had this great issue in it about Obi-Wan living on Tatooine, and which actually works surprisingly well with the Obi-Wan Disney Plus series, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, I thought it worked really well with it.
Yeah, it was sort of like it was a follow up to that ending to whatever the first one was called, Skywalker Strikes. Follow up to that where Luke finds the journal of Ben Kenobi, and so it was just sort of like tells that story. It was cool. It was just a really great issue, just on its own. Really appreciated that.
Yeah,
but the actual Smuggler's Moon plot was awesome. They found themselves in like Nar Shaddaa, and it was that.
Initially, by the way, this is just Luke Skywalker.
This was Luke. Yeah, Luke found his way to Nar Shaddaa because he was trying to. What was he trying to do there?
He was trying to get to Coruscant to get to the Jedi Temple.
That's right. He was trying to get to Coruscant,
which is a dumbass idea.
Yeah, and then he was caught by what was his name? Jabba person, Gracchus the Hutt. He was
Gracchus the Hutt.
Gracchus the Hutt.
Awesome.
Who's really cool. He was this like half cyborg Hutt guy. He had like these like robotic spider legs and like other robotic bits all over him, and it was cool. It was
infinitely more mobile than 90% of Hutts.
Absolutely, yeah. And so, so he captured Luke. Gracchus had this really interesting like room where he was like, he had like ancient like Jedi artifacts and like holocrons and things like that. Luke, there's a great scene where like Luke opened up all the holocrons at once, and it was really cool. It was just a really interesting idea.
It was. And also, mostly we also find out there was like just a vault of lightsabers.
Yeah,
at that point as well.
Importantly, that everyone got to use at the end, including Chewie, who was dual wielding sabers, which I thought was badass.
That was awesome. Yeah.
We also got a lot more on Sena Solo in this volume, or Sena Staros, I should say, which is a name I remember from the High Republic, and I can't remember who it was in the High Republic, but I remember That's right, yeah, from
Avon and her mother.
Yep,
Avon,
that's right.
Avon. Actually, what is the correct pronunciation of that? I don't. You listen to the audiobooks.
Avon.
Oh, good.
Yep. Yeah. And so, so we got a lot more on her. She's not actually married to Han. It was sort of like this scam they were pulling in the past, and
it was a fake wedding that Han kept trying to tell Leia about, and then it took her to almost be on deathbed to go, okay, Leia, I'm done messing with you. We're not married.
It was really fun. It was a really fun time. But then eventually they all got to help and save Luke. Well, specifically first, it's Chewie and C-3PO that go out to help him. And Chewie
had my favorite line in that.
Go ahead. Tell us all about that.
Who was the bounty hunter?
Dengar.
It was Dengar. He had Chewie in like an electric net, if I remember correctly. That sounds right.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And 3PO looks at it and goes, why must I always save the day? And he takes the charge of the net so Chewie can get up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hilarious. I love 3PO has some of the best dialogue.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And yeah, there were so many great moments. I think one of my favorites was when Chewie was like interrogating the guy trying to find out where Luke was, and he's holding him like over this bridge, and 3PO is like looking away, and next thing you know, like 3PO turns around and he's like, oh, well, where did the guy go? And Chewie like roars, and 3PO's like, oh, you let him go? Okay, well that's good, thank you. And they like just kind of go on their way. It's very fun. It's a really fun time.
It was a really good time.
There was also the character of the Game Master in this, who eventually found out was named Sergeant Creel. He was secretly working for Vader, and he was actually trying to like keep Luke alive because I guess he knew that Vader wanted him. I believe was the case.
I think that's the implication.
I think that was it.
Also, the implication helped by like the knowledge in the Vader series.
That's true. Yeah. But then also we had in this volume Gracchus's pet, Congo the Disemboweler, which I think was just one of my favorite things in this whole collection.
That was such a visual treat to see.
Right? Oh my god, I love it. It truly is like there are those things where it's just like, oh, I wish I could watch like this Star Wars movie for the first time again. It's like, no, it felt like actually seeing the Rancor scene for the first time again. It was really great. From Return of the Jedi, of course.
Can you imagine Luke gets to the Rancor scene where sees the Rancor, then thinks about Congo the Disemboweler and yawns at the Rancor? Like,
right?
I thought bigger.
Can you imagine? My god. But yeah, I think that's all. That was like sort of like the biggest things of note in.
Those were the big highlights. Everyone got lightsabers. They all.
Everyone did. I loved that scene. Oh my god, that was so
Han
fun.
had this great line about like not slicing his own face off.
Yeah. It was a great time. It was a really great time.
They all showed up. They all escaped. It was a good time.
Yeah.
I mean, not the Impact had a bad time.
Well, of course, yes. But then I chose our book for that episode, or rather, our audio drama, Dooku Jedi Lost by Cavan Scott, which was fascinating.
So good.
Equally about Asajj Ventress as it is about Dooku, which I found really interesting.
Well, it's really her only canon path at the moment, right? That was the big thing we talked about outside of like the major plot beats, correct?
What do you mean, like
that this is really Ventress's and Dooku's really big canon like backstory bit now, right?
Yeah. Sort of like because there are also those flashbacks in the episode Night Sisters of Clone Wars where we see sort of where Ventress came from and how she was taken from Dathomir and eventually became a Jedi. And so that was also one of the things that this audio drama sort of tapped into, which was Ventress's master when she was a Jedi, Kai Narek, who sort of haunts Ventress throughout it, which I found really interesting.
It's an idea I remember commenting about when we did the episode that's now lost to time. Like, it's an idea that struck me as something similar that was happening in the High Republic.
Oh, with who? I forgot.
Marta.
Yes. Okay, you're right.
Like absolutely. Just literally being haunted by your past.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
But I mean, for Ventress, it was more of a like him trying to be kind of like Jiminy Cricket, just be her better conscious that she just constantly kept ignoring.
Yeah. I found that a really interesting aspect of it. But then also on the Dooku side of things, which is obviously what it's mostly about, we get a lot of Dooku's family, which I found really, really interesting.
Yes, very cool.
His father, Gora, who's a fucking dick, hated that guy. His mother, Anya, I believe.
Eyes
And then
off screen.
and then his two siblings, Ramil and Jenza, his sister. All
Who
just super fascinating characters. Sorry, go ahead.
I liked his siblings because, to me, it felt like the two sides of Dooku we see.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like he, like when it comes to Ramil, he ends up being kind of like Ramil, as in like he eventually becomes the ruler. He becomes the count of Sereno,
yep.
And like he kind of picks up on some of those personality traits that Ramil has towards the end of the book, but not nearly as extreme, clearly, because that's when like Jenna's personality kind of really influenced him. Like he had some of those ruler tendencies that were way toned down because of his close relationship with his sister.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I really liked what they did with all of them, and also just especially like once Dooku became a Jedi, his relationship with his father, like every time he would go back to Sereno, I found that really interesting. That's sort of like his father, like was just really glad when Dooku was taken away, which I find really fucked up and interesting.
He was like if I remember correctly, in the moment he found out Dooku was a Jedi, he told someone, "Call that stupid Jedi Order people, leave him on the front step."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just it's rough. I want to talk also. I remember commenting a lot on the voice cast in the
we definitely talked about the voice cast.
Yeah. So that was sort of my thing was so we had the big ones I want to talk about, I guess, Orla Cassidy as Ventress, who does this sort of almost Nika Futterman like Ventress from the Clone Wars, but with her own little spin on it. And then there's Ewan Morton as Count Dooku, which is just not at all Count Dooku, but also very much his own character and a version of Dooku I could really get behind.
Yeah, I was for it. Like once it got going, and I was like accustomed to listening to the voice and going, okay, Dooku, younger Dooku too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think he does all the Dookus throughout it. Yeah.
Like I got behind it. It was definitely. It's kind of like, this is more about next episode, but it was kind of like Anakin in the 2D miniseries.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like it's different, but you get used to it.
Yeah, see, I don't know. It's weird because I find I can't remember the actor's name in the 2D micro series, but the Anakin from that is actually trying to do Hayden Christensen, whereas I think like the more apt comparison here is like Matt Lanter in the Clone Wars. Like I don't think he's like Hayden Christensen, but he's equally a version of Anakin that people really grew to appreciate. But wasn't really trying to be like Hayden Christensen, I think.
Which was a smart move for him.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, Matt Lanter is my favorite Anakin, easily. Well, I guess James Earl Jones is really my favorite Anakin, but still.
Man, that's a thought I never really considered.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, that and then voice cast wise, like, so it's weird. So they didn't really get like impressionists for the roles, like Ewan Morton and Orla Cassidy. But then they cast Mark Thompson as Yoda, and he fucking crushes it, and he does this really great Frank Oz impression that I'm absolutely
because he does a great.
Yeah. And Mark Thompson is obviously like the audiobook Star Wars guy. Odds are if you've heard any Star Wars audiobooks, you've probably heard at least a Mark Thompson Star Wars audiobook. He's kind of everywhere. But yeah, he does Yoda, and he does a fantastic job, obviously.
And there's a lot of great little plot beats. Like there's when early on, I remember like I listened to it before you did.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it like I remember when Dooku is starting to relay his, like when he first gets on Sereno, he's talking about like his fellow I want to call them younglings. What do they call initiates?
I think so, yeah. I think so. Initiates, yeah.
They're like, man, are there initiates? Or they're talking about stuff like the Nameless and this, and I'm like, the Nameless. When did this come out again?
It came out before all the High Republic stuff, which is really weird, and also just fucking Kevin Scott being Kevin Scott.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever works Kevin Scott wrote this, I was not surprised at all.
Yeah.
But then on actual more plot related things, like there's one of my favorite scenes on a personal level was Dooku trying to impress Yoda to finally teach him after he picked him.
Mm.
And how he like lifts up the tree, and then like Yoda still doesn't like open his eyes.
Oh yeah, fantastic.
And then only after Dooku goes, fine, but I don't know what you want me to do. And then Yoda goes, now we learn.
Yeah, that's good shit. I just love that. We also get a lot on Dooku's relationships with characters like Sifo Dyas and Qui-Gon Jinn. Sifo Dyas, of course, having a really fascinating story. We find out a lot about sort of like what led him to be as astray as he was. He sort of like goes insane because he looked into this like Sith artifact because of his master, Master Costana, who pretty much like takes Dooku and Sifo Dyas to see this and is like, okay, look, we're not going to tell anyone about this, not even the council. Like, just stitches get stitches. Which
exactly.
Yeah. And then also it delves into like Dooku's time with Qui-Gon Jinn when they were like master and apprentice, which I also found really fascinating.
And then there was also his first Padawan.
Yes, they mentioned very briefly, who didn't actually show up much, or at all. I think it was just a mention.
No, he definitely shows up occasionally.
Okay.
Because he has at least two scenes. There's the spaceport scene and the negotiation scene.
That's true. Yeah. Rael Averross, who I realized was a character that had been created not long before this, or maybe not long after. Either way, I think they first
also had a voice that I did not anticipate. Just putting it out there.
I think it was from Master and Apprentice, which is actually also a book that I've been very interested in lately. Yeah, I'm sure we'll cover that at some point.
We'll definitely cover that at some point.
Yeah. What else? Oh yeah, and then also like, so this is also like meant to be like pretty much like right before Attack of the Clones, right before the Clone Wars kicks off. It's like
because there's Republic spies even on Sereno.
Yeah, so the story sort of like ends up being like a lot about like Dooku sort of like finalizing his transformation into Lord Tyrannus and fully accepting Ventress as his apprentice. So it culminates in this fantastic moment towards the end where basically Ventress's mission for Dooku here is to find his sister, Jenza, and then kill her.
She is a liability. She was literally captured and was going to be taken back to the Republic to find out what she knew.
Yeah. And Jenza like knew about Palpatine and was like begging Dooku towards the end to like not listen to him, and it's fascinating. I loved it. Also, the ending's kind of trippy in this weird way. Like it Ventress like sort of like fighting with herself as she's told to like fully give in to this moment. It's just it's wonderful.
It's really, played kind of like she goes into a completely like in real time, totally momentary thing, but in like her head, it could take ages to play itself out. Lucid moment.
Yep. Yeah. So I think that does that. And again, also I mentioned we talked about Bad Batch season 3 speculation. But obviously that's not a really relevant conversation to be having here right now. Especially because I guess we could talk about it right now. Next time on R2-BD, we're probably going to be covering the latest season of the Bad Batch, so that
is most definitely going to happen, I assume.
Yeah. So yeah, there's that. You have to look out for that, I guess. I think that covers episode 3 of R2-BD in about half an hour. So go us!
Yay! And we still hit a lot of the same points.
We did. Not as many tangents, but I missed the tangents. It's all right. We'll be good.
There'll be more tangents next time.
Yeah. Anyway, we also so for episode 4 then we started by covering the Clone Wars 2D microseries Volume 1, which is something we had not seen in a long time.
Long time.
We definitely watched it like when it was like first coming out when we were really little.
Totally.
But I honestly not much more beyond that. I I honestly I can't remember watching it much more after that. I don't know why. I know I remember being fun and great, and it is fun and great. And
I think it was because when it released, it was in anticipation of Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think we went right as the really small Star Wars fans. We're like, this is great, this is exciting, but here's the live action stuff.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Just looking back on it though, it's fucking great. It's fascinating. It's a great look into like how the Clone Wars was sort of like first thought of, and also a lot of like a style that sort of was carried over into very early Clone Wars CG series, where it's sort of like the anthology structure of it, in that like instead of like 5-minute stories like here in the 2D series, in the 3D one there's the anthology is sort of like taken to like full episodes, given to like, here's an episode about Kit Fisto, here's an episode about Luminara Unduli and Jedi you wouldn't really think about often. And then of course, 3D series eventually abandoned that anyway, but still.
Like a lot of really Clone Wars is, granted, there's creative people behind it, so they have favorites that they prioritize occasionally. Plo Koon.
We love complaints there. We will not complain.
I mean, we probably love him mostly because of the show, but we're not going to go there. But like, it does focus on Jedi that you don't think about, like that are just on the council that you go, oh, what's his story? Oh, well, let me tell you.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's just cool. It's really, really cool. And so to see, there are the sort of the early makings of that here. Also, of course, it has the wonderful style of Jenny Tarkovsky, big Cartoon Network guy at the time.
And lends itself so beautifully here.
A guy that very much like knew, like, with the like 5-minute format, knew exactly what he could do. There's minimal dialogue. It's mostly action set pieces, things that you could just sort of like jump in with, enjoy, be interested in, and then just sort of leave and maybe check out more. And it's just it was cool. It was a cool idea. And also, I think if I remember right, they were sort of designed, these shorts, to be like aired between other sort of Cartoon Network programming at the time.
Yes, they were to replace certain commercial breaks, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I believe so. And so yeah, that's what they did, and you could tell. But it fills in the time slot, does each of those little stories perfectly. It's great stuff. There's some great characters throughout this. We have the first actual like appearance of Asajj Ventress in this, which is really great. Culminating immediately in her death by the end.
Right.
But whatever.
We could maybe ignore. It's still possibly true, but maybe not. It's a weird bit of canon.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is like, also,
it was a weird bit of canon.
Was a weird bit of canon. It's weird. We kind of decided to talk about this and didn't realize how interestingly it would parallel our book that we covered in episode 4, the original episode 4, I guess. And so So like there are things that, like, I guess up until a certain book came out, we didn't know, like Anakin's first meeting with Asajj Ventress, and so this was sort of like the only account of that. Also, we still don't have, I think, a canon reason for the scar on Anakin's face, do we?
No, that scar just magically appeared somewhere.
Yeah, it's weird.
Like, isn't it weird how, like, when the 2D microseries came out, we all deferred to certain aspects of it, and we're like, yeah, sure, this is still canon. Everything else really not so much, and we're totally okay with that mental compartmentalization. Yeah,
well, it's also interesting because, like, if I remember rightly, like, there were still people that were like, I want to say, like, right up until pretty much Disney kind of took over, that were saying that, like, the Clone Wars 3D series is bookended on each end by the volumes of Star Wars Clone Wars, the 2D series, where it's like, you do volume 1 before the 3D series, see Ventress's first meeting with Anakin, see how he gets the scar, maybe bump up the knighting ceremony from volume 2 a little bit, but otherwise, and then the volume 2 closes it off because you see how Palpatine is taken, which is something you never really saw back in the original. Back when, like, the 3D series only had 5 seasons pretty much. So yeah, I don't know. I remember there were like those people that like still found a way to fit it into canon somehow, which was kind of fun. Kind of impossible to do these days.
Because it does still account for Anakin's scar.
Yeah.
Which is there in the 3D series because, well, he had it in the 2D series.
Yeah. So I don't know, just really fascinating. Yeah. Also, we had Dirge. I love Dirge. Dirge is great. Dirge is just a really fun character. This unstoppable fucking bounty hunter, giant purple glob alien underneath. Love it. It's a great time. Also, this is on the voice cast. This is also the first appearance of I think it's the first time he ever did it. James Arnold Taylor as Obi-Wan. Actually, a lot of the voice cast of Clone Wars kind of got their start here. This is where Tom Kane as Yoda begins, I believe. I think there's someone else that I remember. Oh yeah, Corey Burton is Dooku. Corey Burton does Dooku here. Was Nika Futterman Ventress? Or no, I think it was Grey Delisle actually.
Oh yeah, it wasn't Nika Futterman.
Yeah. Grey Delisle does like every female character in this. Like between her and Padme, she's just Padme in this as well.
She's good as Padme though.
Yeah, she's really good.
She's good as both.
Yeah.
But Obi-Wan, man, he found his voice like immediately.
James Arnold Taylor never fucking missed with that. He had that shit immediately. I was trying to think of some other shorts that I like. The Kit Fisto short everybody loves and is iconic for a reason. It's an underwater battle with a wavy lightsaber underwater. It's a fun time.
Because I mean, that is kind of how a plasma beam would work underwater.
Yeah. And while they did get shirtless Kit Fisto in the 3D series, they didn't translate the wavy saber, and I think they should have. What else? Oh yeah, I love the Maze
million gunships in one of the earlier shorts.
Yeah, when they're in the big clone assault one, which of course, the clones are badass in this series.
They're like elite commandos, like all of them.
Every single one. Then there's of course the Mace Windu one with the giant ground stomper thing, which I love.
That was phenomenal. Like the idea of a machine that would cause ground quakes is hilariously like evil. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
You could picture Dooku like twirling his beard as he comes up with this idea.
Oh yeah. It's great. I just saw another note, but I can't remember what it was that I wanted to talk about, and I think I wanted to end it there, and I can't remember what it was. Fuck it. Dooku flies.
Yeah, I'd say I did want to talk very briefly about that weird Force moment where they were like, can people with the Force fly? Sure.
Jenny Tarkovsky Force users are so fucking powerful. I love them. Oh, also there's that's Grievous at the end, which I'm sure we'll eventually cover Volume 2, and we'll be able to talk about him in more depth there. But Tarkovsky Grievous is just unbelievable. Yeah, love him.
He's unstoppable.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And also I love that theme that follows him around. It's a great time.
It's so good.
Yeah. Anyway, let's talk some comics.
Comics.
Shadows and Secrets for Darth Vader. This one was a cool sort of expansion on the first volume. I think not as exciting as Smuggler's Moon, but still a really great time. There's a lot of great Aphra stuff, a lot of great 000 and BT1 stuff. There's also another Hutt, Sutha the Hutt, I remember seeing briefly.
Yes, they were in charge of like smuggling treasures and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That Aphra then promptly stole with the info from Vader, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
It was a big setup for Vader to have his own money, essentially, in an offshore Australian bank account.
But I keep yawning. But yeah. But I remember commenting that in the original recording that Bosk shows up in this, and what each sort of volume of these things that we've been reading have been sort of setting up is the fact that these all take place between New Hope and Empire, but also setting up the Empire's relationship with these other bounty hunters before they show up in Empire Strikes Back. So you had like Forlom's appearance in Skywalker Strikes, Dengar in Smuggler's Moon. You had Boba Fett, of course, appearing in both of those early volumes, and Bosk here. I just find that really interesting that they take the time to be like Jason Aaron and Kieran Gill are taking the time to sort of set up those different characters that are going to become important, and not just for a random reason. You know, these guys aren't just like showing up here.
I think it's smart world building that like these are the people already on the Empire's like hit list, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've already been in contact with the Empire, so let's call it the guys who haven't necessarily failed us that hard.
Yeah.
Even though they've all technically failed.
Right. Yeah. I did like Inspector Thanoth in this. He was interesting.
I loved him. He was great.
He was basically Sherlock Holmes.
Evil Sherlock. Evil Sherlock Holmes, but no, that's Moriarty.
Yep. Investigating Vader throughout this and totally onto his shit, which is great. There's also the
moment something goes down, he looks at Vader and goes, "Do you know anything about that?"
Right. There's also the Ante, which I found really interesting, which is this sort of like underworld type boss character that like Afra was familiar with, who got her some information.
Also has a terrifying face when it changes.
I thought he looked like Ghostface from Scream.
He did, but that looks so wrong in any facial expression, like in the comic.
Yeah. Also, one of the most interesting things here was I don't think I wrote down the character's name. I think so. Actually, hang on. Ton. I think Ton was his name. The guy that Afra goes to like talk to about because Vader wants to know about Padme, of course, yes. And Afra doesn't know why. And so Ton is the guy that was the mortician, pretty much. He knew yes. Padme, and he's the guy that basically like rigged her body
he made her still look pregnant.
Yeah, made her look like she was still pregnant, which is actually something because I actually rewatched Revenge of the Sith just last month. And I, after having read this already at that point, I was like, oh shit, that's right. She does still look pregnant there. I guess it's not something you think about when you're just watching it casually, but you know, having that knowledge, it's like, oh yeah, they did take the effort to make her still look pregnant in that shot. And I find that really interesting.
Publicly, because as you pointed out, publicly, she had to announce she was pregnant at some point, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. Which also like, oh, that was a great conversation we had. I just remembered that one, the funniest shit, where it's like Padme publicly announcing she's pregnant, and everyone just being like, "Oh shit! Well, who's the father?" And she's like, "I don't know, man. I don't like she has to like pretty much just say that like she doesn't know who her baby daddy is, and it's just like it's
I can so picture weird. It now. There's a press release. She like leans into like a counter and goes, "Listen, guys, I'm a senator. We have parties. Just pick someone. It couldn't be anybody."
Shit gets wild.
Accusations are thrown all over the hollow net of like, this senator could be Padme's undisclosed.
I would totally follow the Coruscant tabloids trying to find out who Padme's secret lover is. I think that would be fascinating.
The funniest crap.
And they would all be wrong.
No one in their right mind would ever suspect Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker, who she spends an inordinate amount of time with.
Except for Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan's got that shit.
Obi-Wan.
And so, you know what, actually? Because having also rewatched the Bad Batch arc recently from Clone Wars, I love the fact that Anakin told Rex just straight up. Like he just trusts Rex with that shit. That's so good. It's just fun. Anyway. Who else? I think that's all the characters really that we covered. I think it's actually. Oh, also, importantly, Afra finds out from the Ante where Luke actually is right now, which I'm guessing is something that's going to carry over into Vader Down. He apparently found a Jedi temple on Vrogus Voss.
That wouldn't make sense that it continues forward, and in a comic we haven't read yet.
Yeah. So I think that would be really interesting to see. I'm guessing that's where we're heading to next, because obviously that wasn't mentioned at all in Smuggler's Moon. It just kind of like.
But they were leaving dejected.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I guess we'll see what that's all about when we do Vader Down, which will be next time. But yeah, so. I guess we could talk briefly about that news that we mentioned, the Mandalorian movie, which we don't really have much to say about other than it's a little weird because they had announced a Mandalorian movie before, but it's not this one. The Mandalorian movie that they announced before is more meant to be like to tie up like the whole universe of like the series of shows that they set up with Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka and all that. But this is different. This is just a movie about the Mandalorian and Grogu. It's sort of season 4 of the Mandalorian, I guess.
I mean, I'll take one movie length adventure. I'd be curious what they can do with that.
Yeah. It won't quite be the same as following them in the show, but could be interesting, and I'll be curious to see what they do.
I think they might be doing this because they now know there's enough character and enough of the like casual Star Wars audience loves Mando and Grogu already so much that they'll go see a movie that has no big grand plot.
Yeah, I remember so many people like fucking tossing their hands up in the air when the news came out. It's just like, no, it's just like it's clearly one of the most popular things Disney Star Wars has going on right now. Like, why the fuck wouldn't they capitalize on that? Especially when like the movie scene for Star Wars has been dead for a fair amount of time now.
Yeah, a little while. So bring one of your most profitable and well-known characters to a movie. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah. As whether or not it does well, we won't know. But I mean, it's a smart move.
Yeah. I mean, really think about it. You can meet the Mandalorian at the Star Wars parks. Why not?
Yeah. Anyway, that's all we had to say on that.
Yeah, like we said, didn't have much to say.
Yeah. Anyway, Brotherhood. You chose a book called Brotherhood by Mike Chen for this, for our reading for episode 4.
And as I explained in the original episode 4, I will briefly explain why I chose this book. So I had a few books I was like picking between. Mm-hmm. And when I usually pick a book, I read the synopsis, like on Amazon, what it's about. And at the time, I was still reading Rise of the Red Blade. Mm-hmm. I had just gone past this cat's knighting ceremony, and there was an explosion on Cato Nemodia. Mm-hmm. And she had to go take care of younglings. We wanted to send her off on a task to take care of the younglings. I had just finished that chapter for that day. And as at night, I was going through books. I asked, I'm looking through them, and I see Brotherhood. I was like, oh, I knew it was on my radar. So I read the description, and it starts with an explosion on Cato Nemodia. I was like, oh, that's it.
And your book was chosen. Yeah, and it's a great book. It's about first off, it's not just an explosion on Cato Nemoidia. It's, in the words of Obi-Wan Kenobi, that business on Cato Nemoidia, as in that random throwaway line from Revenge of the Sith, which is weird.
That business on Cato Nemoidia doesn't count.
Doesn't count.
In reference to Anakin saving his life.
Yeah. It serves as this, I think, really perfect transition between Attack of the Clones and Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the show that we know. Yes. To I don't know, just bridges this really nice gap. One of my favorite books we've done on the show so far. I really enjoy it.
It's definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah. There's a lot to love here. First off, I don't know why this. Okay, I know exactly why. My eyes are going to this one note because it's in all caps. I have Doctor Who written down here because there's a Doctor Who reference in here that they talk about Hu Yang from Clone Wars, and I guess now Ahsoka as well. Who was apparently brought to the Jedi Temple in a blue box many years ago. I love that.
So old that it is lost to legend how he was brought there.
Yeah.
Like that many generations of Jedi have come and gone.
Yeah.
So now legend says it was a blue box. Mm-hmm. David Tennant.
Also in all caps here, I have Ventress, because obviously I was excited about Ventress. Ventress's first actual canon meeting with Obi-Wan and Anakin, which I think is really cool to see finally. Because when you're watching Clone Wars in chronological order, it's just like she kind of shows up in the hidden enemy. It's like, okay, well, we know who you are already. This is like the second episode in chronological order. I clearly didn't miss anything. I guess you missed this book.
It is kind of a weird scenario when Clone Wars, the 3D show, came out. Mm-hmm. But now, like, we've retroactively fixed that. Everyone clearly isn't going to read Brotherhood.
Yeah.
But they should. It's a good book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a great character in this called Mill. Mill. What was her name? Mill. I gotta have it written down here somewhere. Mill Alabeth. Who sort of acts as like this prototype Ahsoka character for Anakin, in that she basically kind of becomes his Padawan throughout this story. Anakin's kind of stuck on youngling duty, and so when Anakin goes to help Obi-Wan, Mill goes along with him. They go together to go help Obi-Wan out, and I really like that.
And her interesting thing is her force sensitivity is so adverse to violence, it like makes her physically ill at the start, which is why she misses going to get her lightsaber, which is the crux to her whole still being there.
Yeah. And so yeah, she kind of like wants to block the force out, which I found a really interesting story for her.
And she creates like a force bubble that Anakin can feel.
Yeah, and it creates this really cool dynamic between her and Anakin, and I really appreciated their relationship. I did see a fucking article when I was looking up more about her character, though. Someone was like, Anakin's first Padawan was better than his second. I'm like, she's not his fucking Padawan, and also, she has one fucking book appearance. She is not comparable to Ahsoka Tano's story arc. Like, come on.
I looked it up, she has, I think, comic appearances later where she's a bounty hunter.
I think I did see something about that, yeah.
Which sounds cool. I think I'd like to read that. That sounds interesting, but that's not what we're talking about today.
Yeah. Also, something I really got to talk about because it's just one of my favorite little things in the book. Sister, there's a character called Sister in this, who's a trans clone trooper, and I think that's just really, really cool. I think she originally appeared in one of those Padme books that I've also been interested in reading. That came out.
It came out in a weird chronological order, if I remember correctly. You tell me.
Yeah. I think it was like, the Clone Wars one came out first, or no, sorry, no, the between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones came out first. Then it was the pre-Phantom Menace one. Then I think it was the Clone Wars era one. I think is the order they came out in.
I'd read them in and not that order because that sounds weird.
Yeah, but yeah. So Sister shows up here. I think it's a cool idea for a character. It's not something like you ever really think about happening, but yeah, that they're what, billions of clones? Of course, yeah.
Statistically, there's going to be one.
There's got to at least one. There's got to probably more. I think it's just a really cool idea.
And also, everyone's just in universe totally cool with it. Everyone's like, Sister, and they're like, yep. What's up? Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah, like, come on. It's the Jedi and the Republic we're talking about. Yeah, of course they're cool with that. Also, Dexter shows up in this for a little bit, which I really appreciate. Dexter, who Obi-Wan goes to, and I just like their immediate rapport where Dexter's like, "Oh, you've been busy with the war," and Obi-Wan's like, "Yeah, a war you started, bitch." Which I think it's great dialogue.
Although he does really point out those clones would have been there regardless of you if I told you or not.
Absolutely, yeah. Satine makes a small appearance in this as well. She has this scene towards the end where she's addressing Mandalore's neutrality in the war, which is cool.
And the Coalition of Neutral Systems, I think it was called.
Yeah. That was cool. I like that. Otherwise, what else? I mean, again, like,
Obi-Wan's the main plot of the book is Obi-Wan trying to prove the Republic didn't blow up the business district of Cato Nemodia.
Yeah. And so Dooku sends Ventress there to sort of like stir things up and blame the Republic, and Ventress gets one of the other residents of Cato Nemodia, who was it, Kitar, involved with her, and Obi-Wan gets Kitar's friend Roog on his side. And so, they like work to like prove Obi-Wan's innocence. I really love the trial scene. That was really great.
That was really great.
It's really like, and also that's one of those things that like, and this whole event is like sort of like broadcast to a lot of the galaxy, with like Obi-Wan on trial and all that. And so it does a lot to explain like in universe why, and when you watch the Clone Wars, like why Anakin and Obi-Wan are like the ones to do everything and are so well known, because everyone saw that way early on in the Clone War, and Obi-Wan is sort of seen as the negotiator. It's a really cool sort of like just bridging of those two sort of disparate aspects when you go from Attack of the Clones to the actual Clone Wars series then, that I really, really appreciated. I really like that. So
this book works really well with the idea that it has, like, if you look at it chronologically, it has a hindsight of everything that's going to come.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that has already happened. And it goes, how do we naturally blend these ideas together?
Yeah. Down to the point where it even includes transitioning from Jedi robes to clunky Clone War early season armor.
Which I think Obi-Wan has this weird justification for.
Yeah, yeah.
Then you have a line that, like, oh, it's like the perfect combination of mobility and defense.
Yeah, it's like, fucking no. Look at Hayden Christensen in the Ahsoka series. That man does not look comfortable. Like,
like if you put that kind of armor on a real person, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work, and you realize why they changed that shit immediately.
Back to Jedi robes again.
Exactly. So. But I think that does that. I
think the only loose end I want to mention is that, like, Anakin fights Ventress towards the end. Ventress tries to capture Mill, and Mill, if I remember correctly, was like towards the end. She's like going off to do like research things, and she's like, "But hey, Anakin, listen. If I ever wanted to be a Padawan," she wants to say this, "Can I be yours?" And then she happens to hear Anakin say, "Oh, I'll never take a Padawan." But she doesn't want to burden him with it.
A Padawan would just slow me down. Classic. Anyway, oh man, good shit. What a great book. I really loved Brotherhood, and
it was a phenomenal book.
Whew, we covered all that in an hour. Go us.
Two episodes for the price of one.
Yeah. Good to get that out of our systems finally, and in a video that will actually be going up. So that's nice to have.
We're gonna have to record this again.
Oh man, I'm not even bothering if I have to record this again. But we can actually talk about what we're doing next time, and we can actually tell you roughly when it's coming out. Because we're going to talk about the Bad Batch Season 3 next time, and we're going to do that pretty much shortly after it finishes coming out, which will be, so it finishes early May, so episode probably mid-May, late May at the absolute latest.
That makes sense. Yeah.
We'll also be reading the comic Vader Down, the crossover event between the main Star Wars title and Darth Vader at the time. And we'll be reading, it's my turn to choose a book. We're going to continue the Thrawn trilogy with Dark Force Rising by Timothy Zahn. I'm very excited about that.
This time the book I have is not an anniversary edition.
Yeah. And also, actually, news-wise, we could talk about the Acolyte if we want, because that's coming up in the very near future. So that's
just briefly.
That'll be cool. So, wow. All right. I guess that does it. Go us. We did that in like record time. Yeah, we're great. All right. Thank you all so much for watching, and thanks for understanding our predicament at the moment. We're figuring it out. We're figuring it out as it goes along, and hopefully you guys stick with us. So thank you all for your continual support. It means the world. Otherwise, check out. I hated that.
I hated it the moment it left my mouth.
You should feel ashamed. Check out our socials and everything. We'll have those linked in the description below. And otherwise, I think that about does it. So thanks so much for watching. Until next time, this has been Joey Morgan.
I'm Jacob.
Goodbye.